Nicky Billou. What I'm most proud of is I'm Napoleon Billou's son, and I believe in people. I'm a professional believer in people.
You're watching Success, Motivation, and Inspiration, where we share interviews with incredible leaders who are crushing it in life and business.
Nicky Billou is a business consultant with a focus on helping entrepreneurs master mindset, branding, and sales. And he also hosts the Thought Leader Revolution podcast. Nicky's a good dude. I'm just looking forward to this conversation. How you doing, Nicky?
Curtis, thanks for having me on the show. It's an honor to be here, man.
Now, you've published quite a few books, and they said you're the modern day Napoleon Hill, which is a pretty massive compliment. How'd you get that name?
Well, honestly, I've just been interviewing some of the world's top thinkers and leaders. So if you know Napoleon Hill's story, back in the day, he used to be a newspaper journalist, right? And he was sent to interview the then richest man in the world, Andrew Carnegie, the founder of U.S. Steel. And when he finished his interview, Mr. Carnegie said to him, "Mr. Hill, I very much enjoyed our time together. How would you like to spend the weekend with me at my estate? I would like to speak with you further." And I don't know about you, Curtis, but if the richest man in the world today, who's Elon Musk, said, "Mr. Billou, I've really enjoyed speaking with you. Would you like to spend the weekend with me at my estate or at SpaceX?" My answer is yes, right? I don't care what else I got going on. It's done. I'm going to go. I'm going to go, "Sweetheart, look after the kids. I'll see you later," right? And so that's what Napoleon Hill did. And the two of them spent the whole weekend together. And by the end of the weekend, Andrew Carnegie said to him, "Mr. Hill, I have a proposition for you. How would you like to spend the next 20 years researching and writing about my philosophy of success? I won't pay you a stipend, but what I will do is I will introduce you with letters of introduction to the 500 richest and most successful men and women in these here United States. What say you?" So it took Napoleon Hill about 31 seconds to say yes, and the rest is history. He interviewed the 500 most successful men and women in the United States. Why people started calling me that is because when the Thought Leader Revolution came out, I started to interview some of the leading thinkers on success on the planet. So I interviewed Jack Canfield. You heard of him? He wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. I interviewed his co-creator, Mark Victor Hansen. I interviewed Seth Godin, who's recognized as the #1 marketing author of all time. I interviewed John Maxwell, who's recognized as the #1 leadership author of all time, sold 60 million books. I interviewed George Ross, who used to be President Donald Trump's right-hand man at the Trump Organization and was co-starring with him on The Apprentice and on The Celebrity Apprentice. And the list goes on and on and on and on, right? It's not that I was any great shakes. It's just these people that I got to interview taught me, their best strategies for how to win at life and at business. And man, I'm like 600 interviews in. So I've interviewed a lot of really cool people. And, it's part of what's allowed me to be able to share what I do with people and help them become successful in life and in business. But my personal story is a little more humble than that. I'm originally an immigrant from the Middle East. So, I'm a Christian from Iran. Now, Curtis, I don't know if you know your history, history very well, but in 1978, I was 11 years old. I'm 57 now. The Islamic Revolution took place in Iran, right? And there was like pitched gun battles in the streets of Tehran. Now, my mom and dad, being Christians, they're watching all this and they're going, "We got to get out of here. This ain't going to be a place to raise a Christian family," right?
Yeah.
So they started to plan, and it took them a few years to fully, create the plan and execute on it. But they took me and my two brothers out of Iran, and eventually they settled us where I now live in Toronto, in Canada. Now, you got to remember, I'm a kid at the time, right? Like, I didn't want to leave my home or my friends. What kid does? You want to stick around with your buddies. But as time went on, Curtis, I saw what an incredible sacrifice my mom and dad made for my two brothers and I. They took us from a legacy of tyranny to a legacy of freedom. And I believe,
Love that.
Curtis, every man, every woman on this planet yearns to be free. The desire to be free beats inside every human breast. We want to chart our own course. We want to march to the tune of our own drum. Think about being an entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur, you rely on freedom, freedom to think, freedom to express your ideas, freedom to enterprise, free enterprise. If you lived in a tyrannical society, you wouldn't be able to do any of those. You'd have to figure out what the people in power wanted and then try to kiss their butts enough so they wouldn't kill you or take away everything you owned. You know, that's why my brand is a champion for freedom, man. Like, I'm a freedom lover, bro. I don't work with wokesters. I don't work with leftists. I take a full, hard-on, strong stance for freedom. And the business people I choose to associate with need to believe in that and need to believe in purporting that to the world. That's my brand, man. And one of my books that I wrote was personally endorsed by President Donald J. Trump on May 7th, 2023 on Truth Social.
Which book was that?
The Great Patriot Boycott book, which I wrote with the great Wayne Allen Root. And you can see that starburst in the middle of the page, endorsed by President Donald J. Trump on May 7th, 2023 on Truth Social. So I'm very proud of this. And I'll tell you, every man or woman who's listening or watching this episode right now has got to be thinking to themselves, I'm a businessman, I'm a businesswoman, I need to be a freedom lover. And I need to be around people who are going to keep my freedoms alive so I can keep going after my dreams, right? That really, to me, is the long and the short of it, right? And my father, he was an entrepreneur. So I come by this pedigree because my family was an entrepreneurial family, right? He was the greatest man I knew. So if you knew him, Curtis, my dad, right, if you were looking for work, would sit you in his office. He'd try to get you a job himself. If he couldn't, he'd call all his contacts, his entrepreneurial buddies, high-level contacts in government, and he'd ethically manipulate them till one of them gave you a job. If you were trying to start a business, bro, he'd sit you down and he would give you his best advice to help you get that business going. He'd give you access to capital, clients, you name it. If you were trying to buy a car or a house, and Iran was like a second world country, right? The bank would give you only so much money. So you'd go up to him and you'd go, Mr. Billou, I need another 10,000. I need another 50,000. And you were a friend of his. He'd go, okay. He'd write you a check. And he'd say, here you go. Go buy your car. Go buy your house. Whatever it is you want to do. And then 2-3 years later, you'd go to him and you'd go, hey, man, I'm going to pay you back. And he'd go, what? He said, get out of here. Don't insult me. So we may insult you. He said, that's a loan. He said, there's no loan. He said, don't insult me, man. Like, you needed help. I gave you help. Now get out of here. And then they go, no, come on. And he'd go, listen, you want to do something for me? Go find someone who's in the same crappy situation you were in and help them. And don't give them a loan. You help them. You give them the money. And people come to me and they go, Nicky, man, come on. Are you joking? Nobody's really like that. And I go, well, I know at least one person who was like that, the late, great Napoleon Billou. And then they go,
that's awesome.
Yeah, why? Why would he do that? What's in it for him? I go, what's in it for him? I'm going to tell you what's in it for him. If you watched the Super Bowl last night, Jalen Hurts said it really, really well after he won. What's in it for him is he believed, as a devout Christian, that he'd been blessed by his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and by God Almighty, and that his duty as a devout Christian was to share those blessings with you. I heard Jalen Hurts say, all the glory to God, doesn't matter the game, glad we won, but God put me here, God, 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 God. And even all the Kansas City Chiefs guys, God, 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 God. My dad was that man.
That's
My
awesome.
dad was that man. And I'm a kid. I want to be like him. He's telling me, son, life ain't about money. It's about people. Business, even, he said, ain't about money. It's about people. And then I'm going, Dad, what are you talking about? Without money, you can't do business. He goes, yeah, that's true, son, but without people, you don't need money. What is business? It's solving problems for people for a profit. That's the purpose of business. And man, all I wanted to be is to be a man like my father. That's why I got into business. That's why I do what I do.
We host events all over the country, and we're doing another one here out in Wakiva Island coming up pretty soon here. But I would love to have you come out and speak. You and I talk about a lot of the same stuff.
When's the event?
I'll get you some details on that afterwards. But
Curtis, I'm going to send you my personal cell number. I want you to text me I want to stay in touch, but I would be absolutely honored. In fact, you're going to laugh, but I've been praying to God to say, God, give me some opportunities to speak with some good people on good stages, because that's what I want. Like,
Awesome.
I've asked for this,
Newswire
bro.
Magazine. That's awesome, buddy. Newswire Magazine, the company that we're doing the interview with right now, is the title sponsor for a lot of these events. So I can get you in pretty much anywhere if you're looking for speaking events in the United States. When you were talking about the highlighting experts and stuff, that is our whole goal behind, like the whole mission statement behind Newswire Magazine and the show that we host on Amazon Fire TV. We've got 433,000 active members as of yesterday in our Facebook group for the TV show. But same thing is highlighting experts, authors, entrepreneurs, motivational speakers, and leaders who are crushing it in life and business. When you said your motto, I'm like, man, I might have stole that from you and just modified the words a little bit.
God bless you, brother. Curtis, we're going to be fast friends, man. You got my cell number. Please text me. Let's talk.
Sounds good. Yeah, and we'll connect afterwards. I'll send you my cell too. But talking about your dad, I know I'd heard about your dad before. Is he the one that inspired you to start interviewing leaders and having them share their insights with the world?
Honestly, yes. He inspired me to go be a better man every single day in every way that I could, man. Like my dad, you have no idea what a privilege it was to have this man be my father. He would tell me, son, that man sitting in front of you, that's someone's son, that's someone's brother, that's someone's husband, that's someone's father. He's a hero to someone. And maybe someone just like you let him down in life, in business. Your job is to restore his faith in humanity. Believe in him.
Wow.
He said to me, believe in people. Believe in people. Everyone needs someone to believe in them. Your belief in yourself, my belief in myself, wobbles from time to time. Let's just be honest. It does. What brings it back? Someone seeing who we really are and believing in us takes the chattering monkeys of the enemy out of your head and puts you forward, so you go, wow, I can do this. That little spark of belief, man, can turn into a roaring fire that'll change your life. And honestly, man, like people ask me, Nicky, you know a lot, you've done a lot. And that's true, man. I have. And I know a lot of things. I got some amazing things. I'd love to chat about a few of them today on the show if we have time to do that. But what I'm most proud of is I'm Napoleon Billou's son, and I believe in people. I'm a professional believer in people. That's my greatest strength. And I believe in them, and I push them to act, right? I've done all these different personality tests. Like I've done the DISC profile. I've done Myers-Briggs. I've done, the dolphin and the animals. And then I did Gallup's Strengths Finder. And that was the one that really, really spoke to me the most. And the number one strength they said that I have on the Gallup Strengths Finder is something called the activator. The activator is that dude who pushes himself and everyone around him out of their comfort zone to get into action. That's my thing. Guys come to me and they go, hey, you got these cool strategies on how to get on podcasts. You got cool strategies on how to ask for business. You're good at asking people how to do business with you. You're good at enrollment and sales and objection handling. All that's true. You're good at setting up a thought leadership and personal brand. All that's true. But the thing that I do the most, man, is if you sit in front of me, let's say, Curtis, you came to me and you said, hey, Nicky, man, you know what? I got a great business. I'm doing $2 million a year. I need to be at 10 million a year by the end of this year. And I'm going to go, all right, Curtis, you said 10 million, right? You go, yeah. And I go, let's have a look. Let's have a deep dive into your business. And your business, the way it's currently constituted after we did the deep dive, shows you're on track to do 2.5 million. I'm going to look at you. I'm going to go, Curtis, this ain't going to happen, man. You're not set up to do 10 million. And you're going to go, what do you mean? And I'm going to go, you're not set up to do 10 million. You're set up to do 2.5 million. So here's what you need to do. And I'm going to tell you to do something that's way out of your comfort zone that's going to scare the crap out of you. That's the truth. It's going to scare the crap out of you, because to get to 4-fold, 5-fold your income, it better scare the crap out of you to become that person that's going to do that, right? Because who you are is not sufficient for that. And then I make you do it, because I just don't let up on people. I love them to pieces, but I also don't let up on them. Like if they're my client, they're my friend, and they go, I want this, I want to achieve this, I am relentlessly on your butt until you do what you promised you want to do to become who you want to be. And that is, I believe, that is the thing that most programs, most coaches, most gurus lack. They know how to inspire people. There's a lot of guys who are great at that. I'm good at that. You're good at that. There's a lot of guys who are great at that. They know how to get people good strategies that work. There's a lot of good strategies that work.
Strategy is nothing without action, though, huh?
Getting people to act is the superpower. It's everything. Without that, getting out of your comfort zone and getting into action, nothing you want in this life is going to come your way. And that's the fact.
If you're watching this on Amazon Fire TV, scroll down. There's a clickable call to action at the bottom. Scroll down the page, click that. It'll open up the Newswire magazine article. At the bottom of the Newswire magazine article, there's a page where you can actually click, read, and then get into contact with Nicky. Maybe connect with you for a free call on the eCircle Academy.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be awesome.
So pause the show right now. If you're watching this on Amazon Fire TV, pause it, scroll down, click that, get in touch with Nicky. Most of the people that are reading this magazine or watching the show on Amazon TV right now are people in that exact situation where they're successful, but trying to figure out how to get that push to the next level. Tell me about Finish Line Thinking, how you designed that and kind of how that works.
So that was the very first book I published, and I actually wrote 2 editions of it. Let me just grab it here. So this was the first edition I wrote. It's only 30 pages long, and then I expanded it to 42 pages. Woohoo, right? So I used to work with some Olympic champions in track and field. A guy named Donovan Bailey, who in 96 at the Atlanta Games won the 100 meters and the 4x100 Olympic champion, world record holder. And then Mark McCoy, who was the 110 meters Olympic champion in Barcelona back in 1992. I worked with these guys. They were my pals. Like I was around Donovan for several years. I've been around Mark for decades. And here's what I realized in hanging out with these guys and people like them that I met through them. The way that gold medalists think is different than how everybody else thinks. They think in a way that produces victory. While regular people might even have more talent than these gold medalists, they don't. They think like losers. Let's just be honest. 4th place finishers. So I started to codify everything I learned from these guys. And in this book, I wrote out 13 principles of how to think and win like a champion, right? And then I started to teach people this. So I'll tell you a story of one of them, right? Is like, you got to have coaching. They invest in themselves, and they don't just get any old coach. They get the very best coach they can. So here's Mark's story, right? He had been in 3 Olympics, and he'd never won a medal. He'd come close. Like, they called him Mr. 4th place because he won out of the podium by 5/100ths of a second, 3/100ths of a second. He won lots of national championships, but when it came to the big one, to the Olympics, things like that, he wasn't winning, right? And so he retired because he got frustrated. But there was a guy, this was in the 80s, remember, right? Before the internet and all that jazz, who was the leading 110-meter hurdles runner in the world. He was actually a world champion. And he started looking for Mark. And he went through family, friends. Again, remember, no internet. He actually flew to Canada, came to see him because he lives in the UK, and said, "Hey, Mark, how'd you like to come live with me in the UK and train with me?" And Mark was like, "Yeah, I'm in, man. This guy's the best in the world." Law of proximity, who you hang around really, really matters, eh, Curtis? Really, really, really.
Yes, sir.
So this dude, world champion, world record holder, brings Mark over, and his coach, a guy named Malcolm Arnold, says, "Hey, Colin's a world champion." I said, "Colin, listen, you sure you want me to train Mark?" He goes, "Yeah, why?" He said, "Because I think I know what's wrong with him, i.e. what's wrong with his technique. And I know how to fix it. And if I fix it, he might beat you. So you still sure?" And listen, this is the sign of a true champion. He said, "Absolutely. We'll both get better. Do it." Plus, he also figured, man, like Mark was an old man and he was going to kick his ass, right? Because he was much younger than Mark at the time. So anyways, here's the story. He tells Mark, "Go run on the hurdles." So Mark goes and he runs on the hurdles. And he notices something's off in his stride. So I'm going to show you. Imagine these are feet. One foot's like this, one foot's like this. What do you see? What's the problem with this?
Not in alignment. I mean,
That's true.
No,
why does that matter? Why does that matter?
Now, do you mean, you have to give me the answer. You mean as far as the physics of?
Yeah, the physics of it. Why does that matter? So I want you to look at the tip of the straight hand versus the tip of the hand that's kind of off to the side a bit. You notice it's about an inch further ahead.
Also going in the wrong directions.
That's not what matters. It's an inch shorter stride. It's an inch shorter stride. So he told him, hey, man, Mark, you're losing an inch on the stride. So Mark goes to him, an inch? Dude, I came all this way for an inch? Well, an inch is going to do nothing for him. He said, here's the deal, Mark. You take 39 of those strides during a race. You're losing an inch per stride. 39 times 1 is 39 inches. That is just over 3 feet. Hey, Curtis, you ever watched an Olympic sprinting race or high hurdles race? What is the difference between the guy who finishes first and the guy who finishes fourth? Is it yards and yards or is it inches? Which is it?
Yeah, just by inches.
He says, how do I fix it? He says, focus and your foot will go straight. So he focused a couple of rounds. It did. So Mark had been running for 15 years. He'd had the best coaches in the world, the best, Curtis. We're talking guys who had helped other guys win. Nobody had caught this. He had won multiple national championships. He'd even set a couple records, world records. But no one caught this. The very best coach in the world caught this. And in a year and a half, he became the oldest person in history, still the oldest person in history, at 30 to win the 110-meter hurdles. Do you want to guess the margin of his victory? Do you want to take a wild guess?
Now you have to tell me. I thought it was just inches.
39 inches.
Really? That's awesome.
9 inches. I got goosebumps when he told me that. This was God ordained, brother. The best in the world showed him the one tweak that won him an Olympic gold medal that had eluded him for 15 years, brother. 15 years. Now you're sitting in here and you're thinking to yourself, this is great. How does it apply to me? Me, business owner me. I'm going to tell you a story of a human being that I worked with, okay? Can I do that? So
sure.
There's a man that I met. His name was Kramer. When I met him, he was a business coach, but before that, he'd been an executive vice president at a major manufacturing concern in my home province of Ontario in Canada. So he made a lot of money, $350,000 a year. But he worked 60 hours a week. At 57, he was completely burned out and he had to quit, right? He got into coaching. He loved coaching. His hours were much more reasonable, 20 to 30 hours a week. And everything about it he loved except one thing. His income dropped from $350,000 to $70,000 a year. That's like just under $6,000 a month, right? So he's coming to me and he's going, Nicky, I hear you're the best coach. And I go, I am. He said, can you help me? I said, let's have a look at your business. So I was the equivalent of Malcolm. I looked at his business. And the first thing I saw is that there's no real focus. There's no real niche. And I go, you're a business coach? He goes, yeah. I go, what do you do? He goes, well, I help people with really any business problem they have. They can come to me. And I go, that's a problem, right?
Yep.
And he said, well, how do I fix it? And I said, we're going to do an exercise. He said, what's the exercise? It's called the ideal client exercise. I drew a Venn diagram and I said, you're going to make 3 columns. One is all the clients that you have gotten fantastic results for. Did that. Second is all the clients you love working with. Like when you call them, you smile, right? Because like, this is awesome. And third is all the clients that are easy to do business with. So by easy to do business with is, so Curtis, there's clients that when I say we're going to work together and I go, listen, they ask me what the price is. And I go, it's 10 grand for this 12-week accountability program that I have. They go, send me the link. Boom. They sign up right away. There's no, you know what I mean? Yep. That's easy to do business with. They also give you referrals and just, there's no fuss. There's no, I need this, I need that. There's just boom. Okay. That's how it is. So
yep.
Here's what happens. Here's what happens as a result of that. He's got 3 buckets full. And I go, who's on all 3 lists? Figures out who's on all 3 lists. I go, what do they have in common? Well, the overwhelming majority were men over the age of 45. It's good to know, right? They were all pretty much business owners. And most of them were lawyers, solo practitioner lawyers with a high 6-figure, low 7-figure practice who wanted to double, triple, or more their business. Once we figured that out, the messaging was tight and on point. Now remember, this guy's trying for a year, 2 years, 3 years to get a result. No result. Just like all of a sudden, brother, boom. Within 6 months, we figure all this out. He goes from 70 grand a year to 50 grand a month. So multiply that by 12 months, that's 600,000. He was doing 350 as an executive vice president. As an executive business coach, he's doing 600, and he's working 25 to 30 hours a week. He loves what he does. He makes a lot of money doing it, and his clients love him. Now, you tell me, this is the equivalent of Mark McCoy not winning the gold, going to the UK, getting that coach to see the one thing wrong, fix it, and boom, it's done. That's how that happens.
That's amazing. Let me go to quick commercial break here. This is sponsored by Newswire. I will be right back, and I got some questions for you. Again, if you're watching this, you need to get a hold of Nicky. This is going to be an incredible change in your business, I think.
This interview is sponsored by Newswire magazine. We celebrate the entrepreneurs and thought leaders shaping the future, those who don't just adapt, but innovate, who inspire others to think bigger, lead boldly, and create lasting change. Only a select few are featured in Newswire magazine. And for those who earn a place on the cover, the opportunities are unmatched. Your story shared with a global audience, your achievements celebrated on national billboards, reaching millions. Every leader has a story. Every vision deserves a platform. Who will rise to the top? Stay tuned. You're witnessing greatness unfold.
Hey, welcome back. Nicky, I saw online an estimation that you've read over 4,000 books throughout your career.
That's right.
If you had to pick 3 that every entrepreneur should read, what 3 are they and why?
That's a phenomenal question. Okay. I'm going to take my own books out of the mix, okay? Just to kind of make sure that I'm not accused of bias or nepotism or anything like that. So
I will be including those in the link. That if you're in the article, there will be links to Nicky's books, because this is something I'm gonna grab some copies too. So
thank you. I appreciate
Feel free to mention your own, but also, they'll be in the list as well.
So number one book that I believe every entrepreneur must read, 1000%, is an old book called The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. This is the best-selling sales book of all time. There are probably 40 million copies of this book that have been sold since it was originally published in the late 60s. Told in the form of a parable and a fable, but it is amazing. It'll touch your heart, and it'll give you the attitude and mindset you need in order to become successful. I believe, Curtis, that you've got to accept that sales is necessary for your business. There is no getting away from it. I know there's a lot of people that go, I don't want to be one of those pushy people. I don't want to be one of those salesy people. I don't want to reek a commission breath when I come to the room. And I appreciate that. But stop looking at it as sales. Start looking at it as service. Okay, the best salespeople are love-based people, that they love people. I actually don't call them sales calls. I call them help calls or love calls. You know what I mean? Nice. So, because that's really what it's all about. Nobody wants to be sold, Curtis. You don't want to be sold. I don't want to be sold. But don't you love being served by some advocate who is got your back and wants you to win? You want to give them your money. You don't care how much you spend.
Especially when they're an expert who is already doing what you want to be doing. If that person will jump on a call and they've got a solution for me that is quicker than I can figure it out myself, absolutely, I'm willing to pay for that.
It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Okay, 100%. Okay, so I think everybody ought to read that. So the second book that I think everybody ought to read is Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers. That's the one where he goes into the 10,000 hours. And it basically is a book that shows that if you really want to be amazing at something, you're going to have to do the reps, put in the work. There is no substitute for putting in the reps. Like, if you want to be a bodybuilder, people go, well, a lot of those guys take steroids. Yeah, a lot of them do. But even the guys that take steroids are in the gym working their tail off to get those muscles. You don't just take a steroid shot and all of a sudden you become big. It's not how it works. It's just not how it works, right? So don't take steroids. Steroids aren't good for you. But at the end of the day, you got to do the work. You got to put in the reps. Okay, I think it's super, super, super important. The third book that I think every entrepreneur ought to read, because it is a powerful, powerful testament to the human spirit and to the philosophy of freedom, is actually called Atlas Shrugged. It's written by Ayn Rand. It's a novel, and it is a long novel. It's 1,100 pages long. And before you go, oh my God, what are you, crazy? I can't read an 1,100 page long book. Yes, you can, because after the first 100 pages, you're not going to want to put it down. No one I know who's read that book can put it down after they get through the first 100 pages, myself included. I was 20 years old when I started reading that book. The first 100 pages took me a year to read. The next 1,000 pages I read in 4 days. That's how powerful that book was. It is a seminal book. It'll wake you up to the primacy of the individual and to why it matters that you go after your dreams, and that the greatest people in society, other than the men who fight, bleed, and die for us, like our soldiers, so that we can be free, are entrepreneurs, because they're the ones who go after the dreams and they keep the American dream alive. They keep that torch burning brightly. These are the 3 books I recommend.
Love that, man. Thanks for those recommendations. I've read 2 of those. I've actually bought Atlas Shrugged, but have not got started on it. So that will be the next one I get working on here.
Curtis, you will love that book. It will change your life. It'll touch you at the deepest core of your soul. I promise you.
Man, I appreciate that, Nicky. I will definitely check that out. Hey, another quick note here. If you're watching this on Amazon Fire TV or reading the article in Newswire Magazine, scroll down, schedule a success call with Nicky. Do you have any final thoughts for our audience right now? Some kind of an actionable strategy to help them move forward with what you're talking about already?
If you want to win in life or in business, there's 4 qualities you absolutely have to embrace. Number 1 is the quality of decisiveness. You got to make a decision that you're going to go and achieve something. You're going to live a certain kind of a life. It can't be a tire kicking exercise. It'd be nice if I did. No, you're going to do this. That's number 1. The decisive action must be what you're going to do. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2 is you're going to have to commit to the process. Okay, so I hate to tell you this. You can't just hang around at the finish line and saying, hey, that makes me the winner. No, you got to commit to the process. And that process basically means you're going to suck at whatever it is you're trying to get good at. That's business, that's sales, that's podcasting, you name it. You know, you're going to suck at it, then you're going to be bad at it, then you're going to be average at it, then you're going to be okay at it, then you're going to be good at it, then you're going to be great at it, then you're going to be one of the masters at it. There's a process to get you there, okay? Commitment. Third, you got to invest in you, and you got to be coachable. I cannot tell you how many people want to chintz out on investing in themselves. All businesses invest in their key assets so they make more money. And as an entrepreneur, your key asset is you. Your personal and professional development is so critical that if you are not thinking of ways to invest more in you every single day, every week, every month, every year, you're nuts. You're basically cutting your success off. The airflow, the airway of success is investment in you. So what does this look like? Buy books. Curtis, you've said that you buy books. You said, hey, Nicky, I'm going to buy your books. You know what? I thank you for supporting me, but I also commend you for being the kind of man who invests in himself. You go, okay, I've listened to this guy. There's a couple things he said that I think are decent. Let me see what else he has to say in his book. That's smart. If you buy every book I've ever written, the total investment you're going to make is around, I don't know, $200-300. If you can't invest $300 a year in some books to make you better, come on, man. You don't deserve to succeed, right? And the second thing you got to invest in is courses and conferences. There's tons of courses on podcasting, on podcast guesting. I teach one myself on podcast guesting, on sales. Invest in them. There's tons of conferences. This is where you get to meet other people and you get to learn from people in the room and you get to imbibe their energy. To me, your annual investment budget for courses should be a minimum of $2,000, and it can go as high as $20,000 a year in courses and conferences for you. Then you got to hire coaching, man. You're going to need a coach or several coaches. Like, I've got 4 coaches that I work with right now, by the way. And I may be taking on a 5th. So people are going, oh my God, he's just doing this because he sells coaching. No, man, I believe in this, right? And my total annual investment in me approaches 6 figures a year, sometimes 150,000 a year. Like, that is what I invest in myself. That's what you should invest in yourself from coaching. Because why should you invest in a coach? Well, Curtis, you said it before. If a coach can show you how to short circuit the time required to achieve something, it's worth it. It's worth it. Then finally, masterminding. You got to invest in masterminding, right? Curtis, I know you believe in masterminding. You teach masterminding. Masterminding is where you get to be around people on a regular basis that are as smart as you or smarter than you and will help you get out of your traditional thoughts. Here's what Napoleon Hill said. 95% of our thoughts and actions are habitual. We don't change. How will you change? When you're around other people who think and act differently than you, think and act in ways that you have not yet considered. And once you're exposed to those, that one thought, one action could change the trajectory of your life. You are one powerful connection right now, today, away from a transformational shift in your life and your business. And then finally, fourth, you got to be resourceful. You got to take the time, money, energy to invest in you and your business getting better. Anthony Robbins says it. It doesn't matter how much resources you have, how much money you have. What matters is how resourceful are you? How resourceful are you? When Anthony Robbins was 17 years old, he had no money. He wanted to invest in himself with a program Jim Rohn had. He went and knocked on 200 businesses' doors saying, my name is Anthony Robbins. I'm 17 years old. Will you invest in me? I want to take the following course. This is what I promise to pay you back with. Will you invest in me? 199 of them said no. The 200th, a woman who owned the business, said yes. She invested in him, and the rest is history.
Man, Nicky, I know you got to get off to another call here, but I am so excited to have had you on the show today. Again, if you're watching this, listen to this, get a hold of Nicky. Scroll down the bottom, click the link, schedule a success call with Nicky Billou. This is going to change your life. Thanks again.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thanks for watching Success, Motivation, and Inspiration. This episode was designed to help you level up. See you next time.